These little children survived 2 years living under the Islamic State. Hamzat, Abdullah, and Malik are 6, 5, and 4 years old. Ziad Sabsabi rescued them, and he's bringing them home.
Я думаю, настолько они переносили, им придется несколько недель адаптироваться с человеческими условиями жизни. То мы находим детей, сирот, беспомощных.
Ziad was essentially a government bureaucrat, a very high-ranking one and very well known in Chechnya, but perhaps not someone who was ever seen as a humanitarian figure or someone who was ever attached in an emotional way to the issues that he was a part of. And that's what I found striking about this, is here was a man in his 50s who really became a grandfather to dozens, if not hundreds, of kids that he ended up plucking out of this war zone.
Without their own parents, the kids have bonded with him. Their radicalized Chechen father tricked the boy's mother into going with him to Iraq, where he fought for ISIS. He was killed. She was treated as a militant too and remains in an Iraqi prison.
He would go into the orphanages. He would, in some cases, would go into people's homes even and look for these kids. He'd follow up on tips. He'd obviously listen for any of the children who were speaking Russian. And then he would go about trying to get them papers, and if there was any other issues, documentation and whatnot to wade through, he would do that. In the process was a heavy, heavy lift.
So far, Ziad has flown dozens of children out of Iraq and Syria, usually stopping first in Moscow and then on to Grozny, Chechnya's capital, where we're headed to on this flight. On the runway, the plane is greeted by a remarkable sight. Anxious relatives, including dozens of older women, grandmothers mostly, rush the aircraft. For a very few, there are happy reunions, including with the boy's aunt, Medina.
По-моему, все эмоции на лицо у нас. Счастье, конечно, счастливы, что их нашли, привезли. Огромное чувство благодарности на всю оставшуюся жизнь.
Chechnya is part of Russia, but it's a very different part of Russia. It's a very conservative Muslim society where women don't have a lot of rights. They, in some cases, married couples aren't even supposed to talk to each other. Men aren't supposed to be seen to talk to their wives in public. And so that's the kind of environment that these grandmothers, in many cases, would have come from. So just at the very beginning, it was very difficult for them to make their case to anyone that, look, there are these kids stranded in this war zone. Their fathers are dead. Their mothers, in many cases, are either dead or they're in prison. But we want these kids. And so these grandmothers put themselves out there, in some cases at great risk. I mean, in the past, people who have confessed to being related to an ISIS fighter in Chechnya, their homes have been burned down. They've been attacked. They've been treated as an outcast. There's a great deal of shame associated with having someone in your family do this. But these women were very brave and they came forward.
The day after the plane trip, we drove out to their aunt's home in the hills outside of Grozny to check in on them.
Chris. I think one of the striking things is that as a dad myself with a son who's same age as almost as those boys, it's a very sad thing to just imagine what they would have gone through.
Medina says it's clear the boys are confused.
Они иногда бывает, мама говорят, потом на нас отвлекаются и нас мамами называют. Почти 2 месяца же не видели ее.
We saw that ourselves. Almost every woman who showed caring and tenderness for them, they called Mom.
I think this is a story that has some more chapters to it. Chechnya is a fascinating, intriguing, even dangerous place still. But these boys are starting, a fascinating journey, and we'll have to follow up. We need to go back.
These boys are lucky. They survived this war. The challenge for their families now is to make sure they don't grow up wanting to follow their father's path. Chris Brown, CBC News in Grozny, Chechnya.